we're actually going to get into a bit of a conversation here, so I'd like to welcome two of the Blockchaingers partners on stage. Martijn Holtkamp from Nuon, Vattenfall, and Wouter Welling from the, and this is always difficult in English, the Ministry of the Interior and Kingdom Relations. Where are you guys? Come on down. You can clap them if you want. Grab a seat. Yeah, wherever you like. This is a pretty informal setting. Okay. We did some prep work, so hopefully this is going to go well. My job here is to sort of lead you to tell your story. So I really want you to feel comfortable. You know, if I'm leading you in the wrong direction, just say so. I've had worse things on stage, so it's going to be fine. Martijn, maybe I can begin with you. In our prep, you said, you know, actually we've been, as a ministry,
Oh, that's me.
Sorry, not as the ministry, as Nuon Vattenfall, looking at blockchain for 5 years already. But it was very sort of internally focused, and we wanted to get more practical experience, and that you felt joining an ecosystem was a good way to do that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And these guys, not me.
Actually, it was, I think, 2.5 years or 3 years, but we are quite some time looking at the blockchain topic. And we're for 2 years now a partner in the Blockchaingers program. And what it has brought us, looking back, the first hackathon was mainly about getting more knowledge about the blockchain concept, see how it works, building up a network of people that know a lot more on blockchain than we do. And also it helped us selecting the right partner for the proof of concept we just delivered this year.
Yeah. And from the first hackathon, you were sort of working with one of the teams at the end, and you told me that you're currently working with perhaps 4 or even maybe 5 of the teams from the second round. That, I mean, that's a huge increase.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened in that year between the 2 hackathons that enabled you to take that level of commitment?
I think then we had the time to really think of use cases within the energy industry. So put it on paper and bring that in the hackathon. So we made sure a bit that the solutions that are being worked on also really could deliver added value to us and the energy industry.
So it sounds like the first year was kind of a searching what's going
exactly.
on,
building
who's
up knowledge,
doing what.
so you could tell the story also within Nuon and Vattenfall, what it's about, because we got a lot of questions, of course, from managers and other people. We hear something about blockchain, should we do something with it? Yeah. And then we did a bit of spread the word, and now we're really building prototypes already. So it's quite a step. And
so by the time the second hackathon came around recently, it was a bit more sort of taking a lead and saying, here are some problems that really need to be solved, and willing to let other people start working to solve those. Yeah. You also put energy in before the hackathon. I got some notes here that your COO did one of the keynotes for the energy deep dive, and actually your VP of Innovation Strategy showed up at the hackathon. There was a sort of unexpected twist there.
Yeah, if you're talking about getting commitment from senior management, and we have 2 good examples for that. So for the energy deep dive we had at the head office in Amsterdam, we asked Martijn Hagens, who's the CEO of Nuon Vattenfall, Customers and Solutions, to do a talk about how the energy industry works and the change that we are undergoing. So he was actually booked for the whole day at a board meeting, but still he took the time for us to come in the session and do a talk for half an hour in a very refreshing way, telling the people what energy is about and the changes we're going through.
And that takes some guts, I think, to be at that level and say, I'm sorry, I'm stepping out of this board meeting.
For a board meeting,
to go talk to a bunch of people about blockchain technology, and I'll be back later.
Yeah. And the other one is about the VP for Business Innovation and Strategy. He said, well, maybe I join the hackathon for an hour, and I will see if I can join. And then he said, well, maybe an hour, but he actually stayed the whole day because he was so impressed by the energy that he felt during the hackathon, and the impressive things and the strength of the ecosystem in the Netherlands, that he decided to stay the whole day. Yeah. And of course, it's very important to have him as a sponsor or stakeholder on blockchain within the organization. So if he's really enthusiastic, then we can only benefit from that. Yeah,
and so you went from this kind of searching phase to this kind of leading or promoting phase. You've got senior manager now on board and getting enthusiastic and stepping out of incredibly important meetings to give this attention.
Yeah.
And that's in a sort of short space of a year, maybe
Yeah,
18 months
yeah,
from the
yeah.
beginning. What other effects has that had for the organization? For example, you mentioned about your legal team.
Yeah, that's another good example. So also our head of legal in the Netherlands, she already joined the deep dive, the legal deep dive, and she also joined the hackathon. And also she was very enthusiastic and really saw the changes that's coming. So she took that with her, and actually she's organizing a smart contract program training for the legal colleagues in the Netherlands to go ahead with the topic.
Yeah, and I mean, I've worked with very large companies around innovation, and that was one of the stumbling blocks we found was legal always says no.
Exactly.
So the sooner you can get them on board and understanding why we're trying to do this,
Yeah.
and of course smart contracts requires legal perspective, so
Yes.
it sounds like you found a good match there. Talk to me about a couple of the teams that you've embraced from this last hackathon.
Yeah, so we actually went on with 4 teams. We're now running the acceleration program with them. So of course it's the Bencom team, that's the winner of the track, but also we decided to go on with 3 other teams. So I think the blockchain story already could hear during the breakout session. So for example, the POW team, they developed a sort of roaming energy contract. So you can take your contract you have at home with you when you're renting an apartment with Airbnb at another location, go to a camping place. Then you still can consume the electricity, the energy that you have under the same conditions. So if it's green, it's also green outside. You use it to load your car, electric car. So very promising use case. And then we have also the German team, Inblock, who developed a great solution for the challenge on the GDPR. So they made it possible by a real prototype, so they could also demo that consumer data can be exchanged between companies and the owner, so the consumer is still in control of that data.
And that sounds like a huge challenge. I mean, just sharing that data by definition would break GDPR, so how do you make that compliant?
Exactly, yeah.
Is a challenge to be solved.
So they really could show by a prototype that it works. So we also,
So
we're helping them to get it to the markets. We gave them a pitch training. We introduced them to senior management teams. If needed, we can also introduce them to external parties like the government, if the idea is also interesting for them.
Yeah. And you told me with the Bencon team, you're sort of heading towards, okay, this is not a prototype anymore, but this is something that could get launched.
Yeah, really.
Have you got ideas on timelines on that sort of stuff?
I think we can have that launched this year. That's
this year, 2018.
Yeah.
Where's the Bencom team? Are they in the room? How are you feeling about that? 2018 launch live from a hackathon. I mean, 9 months. That's pretty rapid pace. Comfortable? He wants to see things going faster. Wow, okay. That's a statement. It's a big challenge, so I guess it has to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys are learning so much. You're partnering with people who are solving real problems that your industry, because it's not limited to just you guys, of course, have been facing. What's next?
Yeah, building more prototypes or even examples that we can put in production, so that we can really show that blockchain can make at least the energy industry better.
Yeah, but this is the next level conference, right? After these panel discussions, we're going to go start talking about, okay, what does season 18/19 look like? What do you guys really need to take it to a whole new level?
I think for us, we on purpose brought in the GDPR use case because it was quite actual at that moment. It went in this year. So next year we will think of more use cases that are making the energy transition possible.
Yeah.
That's what we learned for this. That's our aim. So yeah, that's one of the next steps.
So really understanding, okay, what are the challenges that haven't been solved?
Exactly, yeah.
Great.
There are many. Yeah,
fabulous. Last comments?
No, really looking forward to the next step. Conquer the world and beyond.
Rutger, I hear commitment. Just make sure that's on tape. Just kidding. Thank you so much, Wouter. If I can come to you in our pre-conversation, you said one of the most important things is obviously at the hackathon we were talking about identity, but from your perspective, on behalf of the ministry, it's actually about citizenship, digital citizenship, and identity is just one of the key blocks. What do you guys mean by digital citizenship as opposed to just identity?
Well, that's pretty complex, because what I've experienced during the whole hackathon trajectory is that identity is key to almost every other track. So knowing which entity we have to do with and how we make certain we have to do with a certain entity. And for citizens, that's the responsibility of the ministry I'm working at. So we're responsible for identity documents, identity registries, and authentication processes that the government provides online. But the next step is thinking about the role that digital citizenship has in our future society. Okay, so what is the role of my digital shadow in our society, and what role should the government play in that? So let's say the first time we really joined in this hackathon, we focused on digital identity, but I think the next steps are going to be around this broader concept of, okay, what's going to be the role of our digital identity, and what does that role make us as a digital citizen, and what role should government have, or what security should we give people, what trust should we give people, can that trust be decentralized?
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned to me is, if we want to go towards a sort of true digital democracy, obviously identity is key, but then that just unlocks a whole new level of challenges and things that we haven't really started to think about how to tackle. Is that your next level already? Are you giving us a glimpse of where it's going?
Well, I think nobody expects the government to completely be on the front of every innovation, because really we need to be risk averse and certain and be there for all citizens. We are a 24/7 open shop. We can't close down because everybody needs the government. We need to be certain and risk averse. But on the other hand, things are going so fast in this area that people are expecting a higher level of services and are expecting the government to come along with certain innovation, but also come along with certain changes that society expects when it comes to how we organize trust in our society. And why we joined this hackathon ecosystem is that it also gives us the opportunity to work together with teams that challenge the way we think about government. If I would be sitting as a policymaker behind my desk for years and years, I can write very interesting notas to my colleagues and talk about that in meetings. But what we had as an aim was to cooperate with people who completely think differently about the role of government in the future. And that's what we started with last year, and I think we're going to do that in an even better way, I hope, next year. Because this year it was sometimes even frightening for some of my colleagues to go to a hackathon where people haven't had a shower for some time and eat pizzas for 5 hours and don't touch them because they love their code. And I even took my boss, the State Secretary of the Ministry of the Interior, along. And he was really, this was something of a venue he had never been to.
Yeah, he had a great time.
He had a great time. It was a funny story is actually that he got the sweater of the super accelerator, and he wore it at the gym session of the cabinet the next week.
Wait,
so
the cabinet has a group gym session?
Yes, they do.
Okay, the things you learn.
And he wore it, so let's say all the people we see on television saw that sweater he wore, and he talked with some of them about, okay, what is that? Where have you been this weekend? And I think as a ministry you should be secure and, let's say, not be the first mover in these technologies, but you need to have a link with the people on the front edge or the cutting edge of technology.
It sounds a little bit like what Hidde was saying, he's walked away now, about being in this perpetually fuzzy state. There is this fuzzy state of we've got to be there, but at the same time it's got to be ready because in your case 1.7 trillion, did you say? I mean, that's enormous amounts of money, but more importantly, you're talking about just the fundament of society almost. Who are you? And not in a philosophical way, but in a verifiable way. How do you manage that combination of hacking on the left and bureaucracy on the right?
Well, that's the hardest challenge. That's why a lot of people in this room probably have never thought of working with a ministry, and please don't do. But that's why I started working there, because I think it's very interesting to be in, let's say, a technological sphere where older bureaucracies based on SQL databases, where we register citizens, where we register cars, where we register incomes, where we register every kind of data we have on citizens, where those old database worlds can be challenged by a new world coming up. And those worlds need a link, and they need people who can be that link or talk with both worlds. And we can have hackathons sitting all by themselves and designing a new world all by themselves, but we also can't have older bureaucracies only running around in circles with themselves. So we need linking pins. And last week I had my director asking me, okay, Wouter, give me another insight. I want an oversight of who in our ministry is working on blockchain technology, what exactly the pilots are, and what their knowledge is.
Sounds like a simple question.
I said, I'm not going to give it to you, and you will not have it. This is the way we're going to work with this, because we're going to form like networks that come together on certain topics, but also dissolve very quickly and come together on other topics. And that's the way my director is going to be more at ease in the future, with people having certain skills, but moving very fast in networks to find people with other skills, and not in a structural hierarchy. What I think is very interesting with this cooperation with an ecosystem of people thinking in a completely different manner is that we can challenge the older bureaucracies without losing track of the certainty we need to provide.
Yeah. So is that what this program's really helping you guys do, is one, get to learn the technology side of things and the application side, but actually really helping to change that mindset within the decision-making layers?
Yeah, that's really the internal thing. And the external thing is that, for example, the Ministry of the Interior is responsible for, as I said, all the base registries, the identification in our society, passports, driver licenses, identification documents, and we have a large R&D departments at the several agencies we have, but we also need to be, let's say, brave to put forward these challenges and ask them to, let's say, unusual suspects to answer those challenges. So let's say several of the teams really made the public officials working on this for years think differently about their topics.
And that in itself is gold.
Yeah, and tomorrow we're having a meeting with some of them. That's very interesting.
So let's get a little bit concrete for the last moment. You've been through this program. This is the next level conference. You've given us some hints as to where it's going. What are you concretely looking at in, whether it's 6 months or 18 months? When can you start to deploy something or get it actually on the agenda that it must or needs to happen?
Well, I think 3 things. We're going to be setting forward a larger network of challenges from the public sector for the program towards the next hackathon. That's one. We're working together with at least 4 teams from the Global Digital Identity track from last year, and that's in different ways. So let's say our state secretary is mentioning them at conferences, or we're linking them to identity labs in other countries, and I'm really seeing that it's not all about simply giving money to, but it's also forming connections that otherwise wouldn't have happened. That's another thing, but what it's also about is that this whole question of what is blockchain going to have as an impact on the way we organize trust in our society? I think the whole next level will be that we've really come a step forward with answering that question. Are we going to go from having funny pilots with blockchain technology towards really having scale-ups and transforming the way we do business in society? Yeah. And because probably some of you have read some criticism that it's too much about having funny pilots and putting money in funny pilots and thinking of yourself as innovative. That's really what the next level is about, changing the way we organize stuff.
Taking it literally to that next level of saying, hey, we've got pilots that are working, now we've got to crack the nut of, okay, what does that look like at scale? Because of course you can't do half of the country's identity. That's not going to work.
No. But you have to be able to challenge yourself. Let's say, work in a permanent beta kind of way and accept that, okay, we can try some things with some of our citizens if they're willing to try that. Yeah. That's a very scary thing to older bureaucracies to say. And within government, I always like to say that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
I think you stole that from somewhere, right?
Yeah, of course. Okay. I read it somewhere. Yeah. And really, it works with all the bureaucracies. If the people don't believe that we can try this, it's going to be pilots all the time and never really working towards the next level.
Yeah, fabulous. I think that's a great last comment. We're out of time. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and sharing us your journey. Doubling down, 18/19, are you in?
It's going to be on tape again.
Yeah.
Careful with what I'm saying now. So, we have permission to do
You'll
that.
see me at the next hackathon, definitely.
I'll take that, whether it's on personal title or on behalf of the ministry, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Give it up for these two guys. Thank you so much.